All right, folks, we are back with Astrology again. Namaste, Astrology.
Namaste, Dr. Ji.
We did a video on Tithis, which was very well accepted. People have asked for more videos. And so we said we're going to do the series on all these Tithis. And these would be short videos that we'll be doing. And I have to say, Astrology, this is a very, very unique course on Tithis that you'll be doing for Cosmic Insights. And I don't know anybody who has gone so to the depth. And I have to say, even your book on Tithis is something which is very unique, because I don't think anybody has done so in-depth analysis of the Tithis and the Tithi Devis, the Nitya Devis. So that's very fascinating. So Achalaji, what is that you want to teach us today on the Tithis? This is the first Pratama Tithi that you're going to discuss today?
That's correct, Dr. Paiji. Yes, so I prepared just a little presentation.
Sure.
I'll just turn it on so you can see it more easily. Okay, here it goes. So I thought that we'll go through all the Tithis just really in short, just to give, you and all of you who are watching this, the taste of what these Tithis are really about. And in this series of videos about the Tithis, I wanted to focus mostly about astrologically really what is their meaning, and specifically to understand them even through the Nakshatras, because there's very specific relation between Tithis and Nakshatras as well, because both Nakshatras and Tithis are the lunar part of the Panchang, right? So they must be very strongly interconnected. And even mathematically, they are actually really strongly interconnected together. So I would really love for us in this series of videos simply to honor each of these Devis at least very quickly and give you some taste what is the mood, right, of the Divine Mother on each of these days? Because this is what we are talking about. Divine Mother Prakriti is like the part of our own inherent nature, and she feels slightly differently on different days. And even if you go actually to nature and see how nature behaves on different days, you can really see that specifically animals and plants are very affected by the lunar phases. So the first goddess presiding over first Tithi, so first Tithi is sometimes called Pratipada or Pratama Tithi, the first one. And the first goddess is Goddess Kameshwari. So before we proceed, I would just like to quickly honor her with the mantra. Om Aim Hrim Shrim Am Kameshwari Deviye Namaha. So all these goddesses are very sacred. All of them are manifestations of Lalita Tripura Sundari. And it is said that this first goddess, Goddess Kameshwari, really resembles very much Lalita's qualities, actually. So Lalita is this playful goddess, the goddess that wants to enjoy the world. And it's very understandable because Kameshwari Devi presides over first lunar day. So it's the first day after new moon, right? It's first ray of light, which we can see. And this day is often also called Chandra Darshan, the first time when you can have the darshan of Chandradev, right? So she's this first ray of light. That's why she's also connected with eastern direction, with sunrise, with everything that is first. And because always whenever we are looking in Vedic culture, what's always first? What gives the desire? What gives the form to the world? What starts the process of creation is the desire itself. Which is why she's called Kameshwari. And Kama means in its lower octave is desire, and in its higher octave it's love. So it can be either the urge of desire or the urge of love here. So she's both goddess of desire and goddess of love. This is why she's also strongly connected to Brahma principle. So the principle of creator. And even according to some of the scriptures, Brahma is one other deity that presides over this Tithi. So you can see that there's lots of this creative energy going on here. And this Pratipada Tithi is all about creation, about the desire arising in the goddess. Because when she's in new moon, she's united with Shiva, so she's complete. When she's in the full moon, she realized the fullness of her light, and she's also complete. But Pratipada Tithi is the first step out of this completion. So the first thought which arises in our mind whenever we desire something, we don't even realize that, but how desire is happening at all? It is by realization that something is not complete. It's by realization that I lack something, that something is missing. I have a desire to reach on some other journey. And this is really what the Pratipada Tithi is about this desire arising. So it's also a very fiery Tithi. So you can see even that this goddess, she's like 10 million rising suns. So obviously it's a very powerful presence of her there. And the natives of this lunar day also have this very, very powerful presence in them. She has also 5 flowery arrows in her hands, which are standing for 5 senses or 5 causes of desire also. Say that goddess Kameshwari is also the mother of 5 Kamadevas or Cupids who gave birth to the entire world. She also holds Ankusha, so this is for controlling the instinct of repulsion, and also cup filled with nectar, Amrit. So even Kala of the moon here is the Amrita on the first lunar day. So it's a lot about, when it comes to Kameshwari, about what we want to achieve, what we want to fulfill in life. That's why Amrit is also very prominent here. And obviously the way how we seek this fulfillment is completely different to different people. So sometimes we seek this fulfillment in our life through satisfaction of material desires, through sexual desires, through actual addictions. We can see that a lot with Pratipada. So this cup filled with nectar can have, can go some sideways, let's put it like that sometimes also. But obviously the pot full of nectar can also symbolize the spiritual Amrita, right? So also the spiritual fulfillment. So again, it's not like, it's really like everything like that in Jyotish. We can't judge, just Tithi. We need to know the placement of Tithi, Lord, of the moon, of the sun, the nakshatra in which moon is dwelling, because it gives like this slightly different taste to all of that. But generally, seeking fulfillment is like the main motivation of those natives. They really seek some sort of fulfillment in life, and it's very important for them. So she holds also sugarcane bow. It symbolizes the control of the mind, Pasha, so the noose, which symbolizes the control over the desires, and Varada Mudra, so the mudra of granting boons. So obviously she's very, very generous goddess. And she's also dressed in red, which obviously symbolizes this fire of desires, fire of passion, which is in her. So also Pratipada natives, they can be very passionate, actually, about anything they do in life. And Pratipada itself, because there's like so much of this fire energy going on here. So here we have a couple of more qualities of this Tithi. So Kala of the moon is Amrita, so the nectar. Element is fire, Guna is Rajas. And whenever there's combination of fire and Rajas, there's like really very fiery energy out there. And very attention-seeking energy also. Because in Zodiac, what is the fire and Rajas? That's the sign of Aries. And this is the very much attention-seeking sign as well. So this is one thing which is like very specific about Pratipada natives. So obviously each Tithi has these beautiful qualities of itself and the shadow qualities, because moon is always dual. It's bright half and dark half. And this shadow quality with Pratipada natives, which can be very much seen from them, is seeking attention actually, because the planetary ruler is the sun. And the planetary ruler, differently from Nakshatras, the planetary ruler of the Tithi actually shows the weakness of the Tithi. And their weakness is their ego, is actually seeking attention for oneself. So, for example, you can see it very much that I say it a lot from the natives whom I personally know, and this is specifically with Shukla Pratipada that can happen, so the bright fortnight, that, sometimes if you, let's say they write you a message, a text message or a Facebook message or anything like that, and if you don't respond like in half hour or 1 hour, they will write you like 1,000 more messages or call you 20 more times. So they simply really need this attention to somehow feel, respected. So respect is also a big thing for them. And on the other hand, when this Tithi is also healthy, then this, attention seeking and also these intense desires are turning more into something more sophisticated. So they turn into love and enormous compassion too. So divine quality here is actual compassion, because compassion comes from overcoming these qualities of the sun, overcoming the qualities of the ego, and actually seeing the another person. So this divine quality also reveals what these natives can actually work on a little bit more. So divine qualities come from, like we all know, Lord Shri Krishna, he has 16 divine qualities, and each of them is also associated with one of the Tithis. And also there's a form of Shiva associated with each Tithi. So here it is Sukhasana, and Sukha means the one comfortably seated, actually. So you can understand just from them that their comfort zone is very important for them. They actually like to be like literally comfortably seated in life. This is what they are really looking for. That's why Amrita and the pot is here, the symbol, which is very unique thing. Actually, we won't see it in any other goddesses. So she really, looks for this sort of fulfillment. because the pot itself, that's a Kumbha Rashi, right? 11, natural 11th house of desires and fulfillments. So it's very prominent thing here. And one thing that I found like really interesting, and obviously because I love the nakshatras so much, so I kind of naturally always connect them with many different things. So it was very interesting for me to observe which sort of nakshatras are connected to different tithis and in which way. So for example, nakshatras which share the same guna and same tattva, so same mode of nature and same element, are Magha, Vishaka, and Purva Bhadrapada. So all three of them are also fiery and rajasic. So this third level of the guna is taken into consideration here. And we can see that a lot actually. So what is so specific about these three nakshatras? Definitely the attention seeking is very strong with them. The ambition is very strong. So people born on Pratipada Tithi can be very ambitious too. They can be very talkative too, which is very, very interesting. And in general, some sort of, feeling of, how to say, experiencing this attention from the relationships is very important for them. And that will be just slight difference that Shukla Pratipat natives, they really like to get this attention from as much people as possible very often, while Krishna Pratipat natives, they will be actually more focused on getting this attention with people who are just close to them or their friends, people whom they really care about. So they will be like just slightly more introverted. And number of hands, so as I said, if we take and summarize the number of all hands of the Nitya Devis, it will give us 108. So what I found like really fascinating, let's try to ascribe it to different nakshatrapadas in their exact order. So as this is the first Tithi, the first goddess, she has 6 hands. So that would stand for first 4 padas of Ashwini Nakshatra and first 2 padas of Bharani Nakshatra. So that is also kind of interesting for me personally, because Pratipat natives is actually one of the most impatient tithis too. So whenever they want something, they really want it like ideally right here, right now. So that's a very specific thing about them. And again, first 2 padas of Bharani, even the symbol of Bharani is the yoni, right? So it also symbolizes many different desires coming out here. And each of the Nitya Devis is also associated with one of the vowels. So for goddess Kameshwari, the vowel is Am, and that's also the vowel associated with Ashwini Nakshatra. So we did also previously these videos of all the chakras and nakshatras explaining all these vowels. But it's also quite interesting that exactly, these nakshatras are kind of connected so strongly with Pratipada Tithi, because they're all very fiery, very much about fulfillment of desires, about some sort of self-gratification too. So again, it's not a bad thing, that these people have these desires. Like everybody has some desires, right? The only thing is that what they should really kind of try to be more careful about is to not be overly focused on themselves. Only because of the fact that planetary ruler here is the sun, so he's showing like really sun can become a little bit troubling planet for them too, if it's obviously not controlled properly. And one thing that I really also wanted to show all the people watching this video are also the yantras, because the yantras are very different for different Nitya Devis. And this is the yantra for Pratipada Tithi. So you can see it's very fiery and very creative energy. Actually, people who are born on Pratipada Tithi are very, very creative. There's enormous amount of creativity out there in them. And the only thing that is very interesting that scriptures usually actually don't support doing too many activities on Pratipada Tithi, even though it's the first lunar day. They actually say more, it's good day for planning, but not necessarily actually doing something, acting in the world, but maybe planning about something, being creative, brainstorming, things like that. And why is that so? If we actually understand that the principle of this Tithi is the principle of Brahma, and if we think that, okay, Brahma is the creator of the entire world, of the entire universe, but he actually never does anything by himself. He gets his sons born by his own mind, right? And they are continuing the entire creation after him, and he gives them the tasks. He creates all the gods and everybody and says, you should create this, you should do that, you should do this. He's like the big boss, right, of creation, but he doesn't do actually anything on his own. So this is also one important thing to know here. And also due to the fact that the energy here is so fiery, the fiery planetary ruler, the Tithi of the fire element as well, the Rajas Guna, it can also become a little bit violent sometimes. So the energy of this day is not very supportive for starting something, because simply it's too fiery. And they were always perceiving it in the scriptures like when there's too much fire, it's not that good to start things. But it's quite really beautiful to observe like how even just by looking at Sri Yantra, we can learn so much about the qualities of those deities. And even for people who would like to balance their Tithi, actually coloring their yantra and meditating with the yantra of their specific Tithi is like just excellent remedy. This is why we really took like, actually Govinda, that's my husband, he did that. He really took care to draw all these yantras and put them in the e-books so everybody can print them and color them and meditate with them, because it's very, very powerful experience. And just in the end, what I really wanted to show for people who are maybe not that familiar with the Tithis, how the moon looks like at all during the different Tithis. So you can see that in Shukla Pratipada, because it's the very first day after the new moon, you can see just a little bit of moon out there. So there's not much moon at all. While during Krishna Pratipada, we see that there's lots of moon and just a little bit of darkness. So that's also very important to take into consideration, because usually we only divide Tithis into Shukla Paksha and Krishna Paksha, but there's actually one other way how we can divide Tithis, and this is by Kshina and Purna. So Kshina are the ones who are having more dark side than bright side, and Purna are the ones who are having more bright sun than dark side. And Purna ones, for example, like on Krishna Pratipada, are generally more generous ones, while the ones which are Kshina, which is this one, is not that generous. So it will be more focused on the self, and it would be like, they literally actually, when they are saying about the quality of generosity, they actually mean literal generosity. So for example, people who are born on Shukla Pratipada, they won't be that willing to, for example, spend money on anything, not only on other people, but also on themselves. So before they will actually buy a product, they will think like, it's a little bit maybe too expensive for me, let me try to get the price down. So that's more the Kshina type of quality, while Purna type of quality is very generous. It always gives more even than it's needed. So that's also the different quality here that is quite interesting to take into consideration. So I think that's all for me, but if you would like to discuss something else, Dr. Paiji, I would really love to. So
This is very fascinating for me, Astrology. And if you can go back to the image of Kameshwari, there was some interpretations that I could make, and this is a beautiful connection that you're doing with the Ashwini Nakshatra and the 4 Padas and Bharani Nakshatra and the 2 Padas. When I even thought about the name of Kameshwari, one thing came to my mind was, Kamdev himself. And
yes.
Kamdev is also called as Manmatha. And his weapon is a sugarcane bow and, the flowers. They say they are, dotted with the honeybees as well. And it's called, Pushpadhanu is the bow, and Pushpashar, which means it's the floral arrows. So that is something that you can see in her hands.
Yes.
And let's not forget that the Ashwini Kumaras were known to have the secret knowledge of Madhur Vidya. Madhur Vidya means honey.
Yes, that is true. Yeah, I didn't notice that. That's amazing.
Right?
Yes.
So Madhur Vidya. And they also had a great desire to have the Amrit, the Soma. And this is the Amrit that you can see in one of his hands. And surprisingly, whenever you think about the Bharani Nakshatra, the 2 padas that you're talking about, the 2 hands, her left hand, you can see a pasha. Pasha means the noose or the lasso, which is again the weapon of Yama of Bharani Nakshatra. And you also mentioned about the yoni, and if you see the Varada Mudra that she has, it's like an inverted triangle.
Yes.
Triangle is nothing but a yoni. It's a Shakti, the form of Shakti. So there's so many things, and even look at the crescent moon on our head. That also represents the Pratipada, the first, the waxing phase of the Shukla Paksha. You can see that, and that's very beautiful. And the Ankush is something which is actually used to bring direction.
Yes, and it's very often actually used to bring direction to elephant also, which is
Elephants.
another feature of Parani, right?
Yeah.
So,
So that's Bharani. And if you know about the trickery side of, and the lustful side of the Ashwini Kumaras, they actually needed an Ankush to bring back, the mythological story of Sukanya and the Ashwini
mm,
Kumaras. So they needed some sort of an Ankush is to, and you also mentioned about the flowers being the five senses, is to control the five senses of the flowers.
yes. Yes,
That's
it's
how
to
you can.
control the five senses, and also they are also called like five results of the desires, and that is even interesting to actually like because they listed the exact five results of the desires, and we have there like dipana, so kindling, mohana, enchanting, and the fifth one is actually shoshana, wasting. And this is something that I noticed like really a lot with Pratipat natives, that they sometimes, due to having too many desires, they actually tend to waste their life force a lot. Because it's really about the life force here, right? That's the Amrita, actually. That's our life force, literally. So they tend to sometimes, waste or empty too much of their pot of Amrit, literally, just, for the purpose of some desires. So that's a very, very interesting thing. And that's why perhaps they need this Ankusha and the Pasha of Bharani, of self-restriction there.
Exactly. Yeah. And you can see, how each of those hands, if you see the right hand, it has flowers, and the parallel, left hand has the bow. And in one side of the left hand, you have the Ankusha, and the other side, you have the Pasha. And then you have the Amrit, and then maybe these are different stages in how, the goddess is going to give you the final Amrit and the Varada. Varada is the boon granting. Uh,
Yes.
so that's beautiful. Even look, I was also looking at the lotus flower on the left feet that she has rested her left feet
Yes.
on. That also shows a control over, the lotus, which has regenerative properties as well. It grows in muddy waters and it's so pristine and beautiful to look at. And
Yes.
it's amazing that we are doing this video on a Pratipada Tithi. I think
Yes.
it was. So it's interesting that there's so much of correlation and honoring of Kameshwari on Pratipada. So thank
Yes.
you very much, Achalaji. This was such a pleasure, doing this video with you. And I will continue with our series of, videos on these tithis. But this is, mind-blowing stuff, I must say. So thank you very much, Achalaji.
Thank you, Dr. Kaiji.
I must
Namaste.